It's December 5, Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. My name is Svetlana Shaparenko, and now we will be talking about the mobilization and results of the Verkhovna Rada's work. Joining us online is Fedir Venislavskyi, People's Deputy of Ukraine, member of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security, Defense and Intelligence, representative of the President of Ukraine to Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Mr. Fedir, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Mr. Fedir. So now there is a number of draft laws in the Verkhovna Rada to be considered that are related to mobilization. So let's talk about them, about social protection of the servicemen. So what is contemplated by this draft law, and do we expect it to be adopted by the end of the year? Yes, the Committee of National Security, Defense and Intelligence, while working on the amendments to the legislation, worked out two quite complex draft laws. One of them covers social protection of the military and the policemen. It's called on the amendments of certain regulations related to the operation of military and police. It was registered with the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine yesterday. And another draft law is about the mobilization processes, about military service. So the work is underway. There are discussions of some final provisions of it, and there are chances that it would be registered with the parliament shortly and will be considered by the parliament within the next couple of days. So talking about the social protection, the draft law proposes to improve the matters related to the leave. For example, when the servicemen have children born to their families, then it covers the matter of pensions, the calculation of the track record for the military during processing of or calculation of their pensions. So when we talk about fulfillment of their job duties during the martial law, 1 day is counted as 2 days and 1 year as 2 years. And if the military takes part in the defense and protection during the martial law, and if so the days are counted as 1 day per 3 days, and if they take part in battle operations, 1 day is counted as 4, and if they are imprisoned or taken prisoners of war, 1 day is counted as 5. So those are the matters covered by this registered draft law, which also proposes to improve the matters of leave for the military and to improve other matters related to the social protection of the military and the members of their families. Another draft law to amend the law on military service and mobilization covers the issues related to amendments to mobilization processes, changes to disciplinary manuals of the armed forces of Ukraine, and the goal of this draft law is to improve the process of mobilization that, as today's practice evidences, have certain problematic aspects from point of view of its implementation and legal aspects. For example, there are grounds based on which a person's draft may be postponed. Those grounds should be improved in order not to allow any abuses and to make sure that those people who maintain some relatives who are categorized as vulnerable categories of population would not be drafted. So all those matters are improved. We'll understand, we'll know the examples when, for example, taking care of a vulnerable member of a family which belongs to a vulnerable category. Such care was processed by a number of persons that can serve as a ground for postponement of the draft, but there are cases when other members of their families can take care of such relatives. Also, the serving of draft notices process should be improved to avoid conflict situations. It is proposed and not to allow the people not to fulfill the legal obligations. So during the martial law, it's proposed for those people to have not only the ID, but also to carry a document that confirms their registration with the draft office. So basically a document that tells whether they are fit or unfit for military service to avoid any abuses and conflict situations. So to sum it up, it's proposed to improve certain issues related to the operation of all of the components of the local governments and central governments, all the businesses and companies in terms of mobilization procedures, because for the time being, the law on mobilization says that the mobilization contemplates a number of measures taken by the businesses, so central and local governments, but in fact, in practice, that complicated procedure is all fulfilled by the representatives of the conscription offices. So the law suggests the improvement of the functions of the representatives of the conscription offices as well. So for example, in case a person is wounded in the battlefield, they are supposed to stay on leave and leave after the end of the treatment up to 12 years without any negative legal consequences. Also, the electronic register, the operation of electronic register is also being arranged with this draft law. So it covers both the military service and mobilization. So talking about the service itself, it ensures the gender equality, equal rights for males and females, the matters of supply, the matters related to the duties of the reservists during the legal regime of martial law, to identify who does what during the situations like the one that arisen on the 24th of February 2022. So as you mentioned, the draft laws suggest the improvement of operations of all the procedures around the mobilization. You see there are scandals around the conscription offices all the time. So what is done to remove this scandal component? Well, you know, those issues that come up to the public space in the mass media, the Committee on Security, Defense and Intelligence reviews all those cases. We required documentary documents that confirm the actions of all those representatives of the conscription offices. You know, we find out that those scandals are fabricated by the citizens who try to get to the media space or try to get their conscription postponed. But we understand that the representatives of the conscription offices, they are military, they should not succumb to emotions. Sometimes it's difficult to do so. So it's not a matter of lack of professionality of the representatives of the conscription offices. So to avoid such cases, and they just try to find out in those cases whether those people are subject to military service or not. This is the only thing that they try to find out. So as I mentioned, we envisage the people who are fit for service to be carrying both their IDs at all times and document that identifies their status of military registration. Also, the process of serving the conscription letters is also improved. There is a number of mechanisms that are proposed to be improved, not to narrow everything down to personal serving against signature. I think all those things will be improved, and as soon as we get support by the local governments, as soon as we have the support by the educational institutions, social protection institutions. All those activities will be more balanced in weight, and they will not result in any conflict situations. Well, talking about demobilization, about the right of the military to demobilization of those who were drafted. So when should we expect for any changes in this area? So those are the main complicated problems that were discussed on the level of the committee. There were different propositions. What is the term after which the people can retire for demobilization? But multiple times I was saying it on your broadcast. During the full-scale invasion in the global practice, in the history, there were no examples of full demobilizations. We understand the citizens that are in the ranks of the armed forces from the very first day of the war, they should understand the benchmarks of their military service, and we discuss this problem all the time. It's now proposed to contemplate demobilization after 36 months of service. There are other propositions, but we are still in discussions and negotiations on those issues, as the law in effect contemplates that regulates the military service in Ukraine. If there is a regime of martial law imposed, the retirement of those military who are undergoing military service is not contemplated. We've regulated this issue previously that contemplates that those people can switch to contract-based service. And talking about the full retirement, the negotiations are still underway. I cannot say that there is some global or general solution to this issue. Well, in terms of those changes and amendments that are planned to be made to the regulations on the military service, is the government in consultations with the military or with the civil sector? Well, the working group that works with the Committee of National Security, Defense and Intelligence is headed by a number of people's deputies. Apart from them, the working group that works on the draft law on the improvement of all the procedures, it also includes the representatives of all the components of the defense and security sector, along with the representatives of civil society. So those amendments are a consolidated position of representatives of defense and security sectors, people's deputies, and the civil society. And the last question, are the deputies going to go on a winter recess? And what will be the end of the year for Verkhovna Rada? Well, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the deputies decided not to take any vacations, no recess. There are regulations in the constitution that require us to open and close the session. So I hope during those days we are about to close the old session and to start the new session, but there will be no suspension in the operation of Verkhovna Rada until the end of the martial law. Talking about the plans of operation of Verkhovna Rada, by the end of this year, during those plenary sessions that will be called upon the decision of the head of the Verkhovna Rada, we will take maximum effort to make sure that those regulatory amendments related to improvement of legislation in the sector of defense and security, improvement of capabilities of our armed forces, and the matters related with Euro integration, as well as those related to fighting corruption, will be voted in consolidated manner. We have questions on the floor. Good afternoon, Angelina Strashkovich, Ukrinform. Mr. Fedir, my question is as follows. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated on the 24th of November that he mandated to prepare the mobilization plan for Ukraine for the next week. And he said that he expected to see this plan on the next week. Do you know if such plan was presented within the periods stipulated by the president? Well, let me remind you that there are two key laws that regulate the activities in terms of mobilization procedures. Both of them contemplate long-term, medium-term, and short-term plans for mobilization, including mobilization of economy. This is why there is nothing new to expect here. but the president mandated it for the time being. I don't have any information whether the general headquarters, who is the main developer of such plans, has already presented it upon the demand of the president, but I don't know about any such documents being incoming to the committee. Thank you, Mr. Fedir, for your answers. We were talking about mobilization procedures and the results of Verkhovna Rada operation. Ukraine Media Center will be back on air tomorrow. We're putting together a schedule for tomorrow. Stay tuned.